It is a special kind of darkness that the night brings to Collinwood. A darkness concealing an unknown terror. Only one person, a young girl, has known the full secret of this terror. But the secret has been pushed back into a dark and forgotten corner of her troubled mind.
Well, if you're cold, why don't you close the windows?
It's not the reason why I'm putting my sweater on.
Well, what is it then?
Pop, I've got to get out of this house before I go stark raving mad.
No, you can't leave the house. It's too dangerous.
Pop, if you say that once more, I'm going to scream my head off.
Maggie, if you insist on being foolish, I have no other choice but to remind you of the dangers involved.
Being foolish. I just want to lead a normal, active life again. I'd like to feel that I still exist.
Well, it'll be over pretty soon. Won't be much longer.
Pop, that's called whistling in the dark. Now, if everything continues at the rate that things have been happening, we're going to spend the rest of our lives cooped up in here. Well, that's not going to happen to me. I'm getting out of this house tonight, and you're not going to stop me.
Maggie, I don't want to have to keep you here by force, but I will if it becomes necessary.
You wouldn't do that.
If I have to, yes.
Pop, why are you doing this to me?
If you think I enjoy keeping you cooped up day and night, you're wrong.
Pop, I wasn't planning to go out and stay out. I just want to go out for a little while to see if there's a real world outside and people in it.
There are people out there, all right. There's one in particular who's waiting for an unguarded moment so he can finish the job that he started.
Pop, please be reasonable.
I'm being more reasonable than you know. You don't remember the condition you were in when you were found on the beach, but I'll never forget it. It was as though all the life had been drained out of you. You had a look in your eye. It was the most terrifying thing I ever saw. You were alive. After the damage that was done to you, you might as well have been dead. Now you're recuperated, you're recovered, and you're healthy. And I'm going to do everything to see that you stay that way. Oh, sure.
Hi, Sam. Hi, sweetheart. Okay, what's the matter?
The same trouble. This house and being trapped in it.
Maggie's a little angry with me. She started to leave the house, and I stopped her.
Joe, would you please tell my father that a few minutes in town won't do any harm? Just a few minutes.
Maggie, you know I can't tell him that.
Why not?
Because there's still too much danger.
Danger. Danger. I am so sick of hearing that word. We don't know what the danger is. We don't even know what it looks like. We don't know if it's a man, a woman, a beast. We don't even know if it exists anymore.
Until we know it doesn't exist, it exists.
Why do you always take his side?
Maggie, this is not a question of taking sides.
Yes, it is. No matter what I want or what I say, the two of you always reject it. You're both against me, and I'm not going to stand for it any longer. Now, I'm getting out of this house tonight if I have to fight my way out.
Maggie, where are you going?
To my room.
Why doesn't she understand we're only trying to help her?
Well, I think if we were in her shoes, we wouldn't understand either.
Yes, I would. I would if there was someone on the outside trying to kill me.
Joe, you forget that she doesn't remember anything. That's why it's so difficult for her to comprehend what we're trying to do.
Well, she knows we both love her. She should be able to understand that we're only trying to do what's best for her.
Yeah, well, you can't blame her for feeling like a prisoner in her own house. She hasn't set a foot outside. I don't know. Maybe we made a mistake.
You're not thinking of letting her go out, are you?
Oh, not alone, no. Oh, but I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go into town if we went with her. Do you?
No, I guess that's safe enough.
Good. Then you go on into town and get us a table at the Blue Whale. And I'll bring her right along as soon as I settle her down.
You sure you don't want me to talk to her?
No. You were getting a little hot under the collar yourself for a minute there. No, I'll Cool her off and have no trouble with her as soon as she finds out that she's going to leave the house.
Okay, Sam, I just hope we're not making a mistake. You alone, Vicky?
Oh, just for the moment. Burke should be here any minute.
You mind if I join you?
Please do.
You look about as cheerful as I feel. Shall we have a drink and spill out our troubles to each other?
Thanks, but I'll stay with this.
Hey, Bob, bring me a beer, will you?
Why are you so depressed?
Oh, I'm not really depressed. I'm angry.
Why?
Oh, because Maggie, she's unhappy about the way Sam and I have been treating her. She refuses to understand that we're just trying to protect her. I guess Sam's right, though. It must be difficult for her to understand that. I'm also angry because the sheriff doesn't seem to be making any headway in the case.
But Joey's doing everything he can.
I know. But I still think there must be something he could do that no one's thought of yet.
Well, he can't very well do it until someone thinks of it, can he?
If only Maggie could remember something. Just one little thing might break this thing wide open.
Her memory's still a complete blank.
Yeah, but all she can do is remember a little piece of music. She can't connect it with anything. Oh, then there's that strange little girl who paid her a visit, but that doesn't make much sense either.
What little girl?
I don't know. She dropped by the cottage right after Maggie got home. She said she had given Maggie a doll and she wanted it back.
Had Maggie ever met her before?
She didn't remember meeting her, but the little girl insisted that she had.
I think the little girl was telling the truth.
How do you know that?
Because the night that Maggie wandered in here, she was in a state of incoherence and shock. But she kept saying that she'd been with a little girl. It was after that that her memory reverted to where it is now.
Well, did she say she knew the little girl's name?
Yes. It was Sarah.
Vicky, what's the matter?
Well, if you go over everything that's happened to Maggie, you'll find that this little girl named Sarah keeps cropping up at the most unexpected times. She was the one that told Sam where to find Maggie, and about 2 weeks ago, when everybody thought that Maggie was dead, David met a little girl named Sarah who told him that she was still alive.
Oh, no, that's impossible. 2 weeks ago, the only people that knew Maggie was alive were Sam Evans, Dr. Woodard, and me.
But David swears that that's what she said. And then when Maggie showed up, she kept saying that a little girl named Sarah had come back with her.
Okay, so a little kid keeps popping up at odd times and saying weird things. I still don't see how that could have any connection with what happened to Maggie. I mean, after all, the sheriff, Dr. Woodard, everybody seems to agree that Maggie was kidnapped by someone. Now, I hope you're not going to tell me there's a little 10-year-old girl who did it.
No, of course not. But I think that this little Sarah, whoever she is, might know something that the rest of us don't know.
Hi. Well, I didn't have much trouble persuading her to come out of the house.
Feeling better?
Yes. I'm sorry I blew up at you like that.
Oh, no, that's all right. Well, Bob?
I'm fine.
Listen, we'll order a round of drinks, and then Vicky and I will tell you the good news.
Huh?
Really?
Yeah, what's the good news?
Oh, I'll take a Scotch or rice. I'd like the same, please.
Beer for me, huh?
And I'll have, my usual, huh? Well, come on. Out with it, Joe.
Oh, listen, I think that Vicky has come up with something important.
What is it?
Well, I'm not sure about this, Maggie, but I think that this little girl called Sarah might hold the key to all the answers we've been looking for.
Sarah? You mean that strange little girl that came to see me and asked me to give her doll back?
Yes. Maggie, do you remember the way she was dressed?
Yes, she had on a very long dress. It was rather old-fashioned looking.
Would you say that it's the kind of thing that she might wear to a costume party?
Well, I didn't think about it at the time, but yes.
And that was the same kind of dress worn by that little girl you made a sketch of, wasn't it, Sam?
Yes, and her name was Sarah, too.
And David met a little girl that fits the same description about 2 weeks ago, and her name was Sarah.
And she told him at that time that Maggie was still alive somewhere.
Well, she couldn't have known that 2 weeks ago.
But she did. David kept telling her that Maggie was dead, but she insisted that Maggie was still alive.
Now listen, the question is, how did a little 10-year-old girl know what nobody else in this town knew except for you, Dr. Woodard, and me? Now, I'm sure none of us told her, so how'd she find out?
Who's to say she did find out? Well, you know how kids are. I mean, you know, she might have just made it up out of her head.
Yeah, she might have, but I don't think she did. Sam, that day you did a sketch of her, Maggie was still missing. And Sarah told you where to look for her, right?
Yes. Yes. But are we sure it's the same little girl?
Your description of her coincides with David's and Maggie's. It has to be the same girl.
Now, how did she know where to tell you to look for Maggie?
I don't know. I've been wondering about that for a long time.
Maggie, did Sarah say anything to you about her family or where she lived?
No, she just seemed very upset that I didn't seem to know who she was. She seemed to think that I should know.
I think if you had your memory back, you would have recognized her.
Why?
Because the night that you came in here, you kept talking about a little girl named Sarah that you'd been with. Well, we didn't know what you were talking about, so Barnabas went outside to see if he could find her, but she wasn't there.
Sarah. Sarah.
Oh, what is it, Maggie?
Do you remember something?
It's funny, but just now, for a few seconds, I thought I heard that soft tinkling music. It's gone now.
Well, listen, do you think Sarah has any connection with that?
I don't know.
Sam, we've got to find that little girl and question her. And I think the sooner we do, the sooner we're going to find out what happened to Maggie.
Okay. I'm in favor of trying anything to help, but I just don't know where to begin.
I think David might be able to help us.
Yeah?
He's seen this little girl several times, you know. In fact, he saw her today.
Uh-huh. Where?
Well, there's the problem. You see, they have a secret place where they play, and she made him promise he wouldn't tell anyone else where it is.
Listen, Vicky, do you think it'd be all right if we came up to Collinwood tomorrow and had a talk with David?
Well, it's fine with me, but seeing as he wouldn't tell me where this place is, I don't know if he'd tell anyone else.
Well, he might, if we were able to convince him how important it was to Maggie's safety. Oh, hi, Bert.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Vicky.
Well, Maggie, it's nice to see you out again.
Oh, thank you.
This some occasion?
Well, not quite yet, Bert, but we hope that Maggie won't have to be guarded for much longer.
Well, don't tell me you're starting to remember things.
No, she doesn't remember who kidnapped her yet. But we think we might know of someone who does.
So we're going to do our best to find this little girl and find out what she knows.
Well, good luck. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know.
Thanks, Bert. I will. Okay.
Good night, Vicky.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, Bert.
Good night.
Have a good time.
Good night.
And now, young lady, would you mind letting me know just what's bothering you?
Not at all. You are.
Have I done something wrong?
You've done something more than wrong. You've done something you should be ashamed of.
I've no idea what you're talking about.
I'm talking about your private investigation of Barnabas Collins.
Oh, I see. Well, I guess I don't have to ask you how you found out about it. Willie told Barnabas I was asking questions, and Barnabas came and cried on your shoulder, and you believed his side of it, right?
You know, a couple of days ago, I was only half serious when I said I thought you were jealous. But now I'm beginning to think you really are.
Vicky, don't be ridiculous. Barnabas is the last person in the world I'd ever be jealous of.
Then what other reason could you possibly have for trying to do something that might slander a man's reputation?
If his background and his conscience are clean, then nothing that I will do will slander him.
Well, what makes you think that his background and his conscience aren't clean?
There are a lot of things about him that I find highly suspicious,
Such as?
such as his so-called eccentricities, which I don't think are eccentricities at all.
Then what are they?
A cover-up or something.
What?
Well, that's what I don't know. But it's something pretty weird, I'll tell you that much.
You can't tell me anything, Burke, because you don't know anything bad about that man. You have a couple of vague suspicions, that's all. You don't even have enough to justify what you're doing.
Vicky, have you ever wondered why Barnabas never talks about his life in England?
Now, why should he talk about it?
Well, why shouldn't he? He claims to have spent a lot of time there, most of his life there. You'd think he'd mention something about it sometime once in a while.
And that's enough to make you suspicious of him, Burke.
Last week, I tried to get him to talk a little bit about how he lived in England, where he lived in England, some of the people he knew. And the more questions I asked him, the more fidgety he got. Finally, he opened up just a little bit and mentioned the name of Niall Bradford, a cousin he lived with in London. Well, I looked up the name Niall Bradford, and you know what I found out?
I don't care.
There was a Niall Bradford, lived on the outskirts of London, but he died 130 years ago. And there hasn't been anybody else living there since then. Now, what do you make of that?
It's perfectly simple. Barnabas was so tired of all these questions of yours that he just picked any name he could to keep you quiet.
Vicky, this man's obsession with the remote past is so much that he could almost be part of it. The other night, when you announced our engagement, the look in his eye toward me was one of pure hatred. He looked at me and muttered under his breath the name of Jeremiah.
Is this the way it's going to be after we're married?
I didn't start this on a whim, Vicky, and I didn't start it because of you.
Why did you start it?
Well, the other night I was sitting in my room and I was thinking about Maggie Evans. And I was wondering why the police hadn't been able to come up with a solution. And then I remembered the night that Maggie Evans came walking in here when we all thought she was dead.
What about it?
Well, she didn't recognize you. And she didn't recognize me. But then she saw Barnabas. And she said, no. And she screamed and fainted.
I think you've said just about enough.
No, there's more.
I don't want to hear any more. If you're going to suggest that Barnabas Collins had anything to do with what happened to Maggie, well, I just don't want any part of it.
Vicky, listen to me. There's some kind of a connection.
There isn't any connection. Now, I've heard just about enough, and you've said just about enough. I just don't like what you're saying, and if you continue to malign Barnabas Collins in this way, well, I will never marry you.
Dark Shadows is a Dan Curtis production.